Hey guys, this is Aaron here, coming at you with another video. It's been a while since I did another game or card video, so I'm going to do one today. It's kind of rainy today, so decided to just stay home after work and just do something for fun right here. So I feel like the top 10 decks that are coming up, or it's very similar to my top 10 favorite archetypes. Um, just letting you know, these are more older kind of archetypes. There's a couple of newer archetypes splashed into there, but mostly they're more nostalgic archetypes that I would like. So let's kind of get into it. So rounding off, this isn't the top 10. These are kind of more like trolley decks or trolley archetypes. It's not exactly my favorite, but it's kind of nostalgic. It's kind of fun to use, like Exodia or like Relinquished, eat up your opponent's monsters, Magic Cylinder, Burn decks, Time Wizard, coin flip decks, install decks. It's just really like gimmicky decks that I really like to use just for a honorable mention as a number 11. So number 10, the actual deck that I kind of like, Cosmo, or specifically Cosmo Dark Destroyer. I like the Cosmo theme or Cosmo archetype deck because it's based very heavily on Star Wars or Wizard of Oz, and I like Star Wars. I like action movies. I like comedy movies. I like sci-fi movies, so that's why it relates to me very much. Yeah, so there's Cosmo Dark Destroyer, high attack power, mostly dark machines for the higher attack ones, and then there's also Cosmo Farm Girl, that's a good searcher, and then there's also Cosmo Dark Lady, which negates effects, and then Cosmo Town, which helps it recuperate cards that were banished from the zone. So yeah, it's very useful. I like Cosmos. It's the reason why it's kind of low on the list because there's a lot more older nostalgic themes or archetypes that I like or decks that I like. So I just put it there. This is probably one of the newer ones on the list, so I'm gonna put it there. Number 9 would be Mermail. I haven't played Mermails in a while, but I remember when I got back into the game, I quit in probably the late 2000s, probably 2006, 2007. I dabbled in it a little bit in maybe 2008, 2009, but I sold all my cards in 2010. So I pretty much quit for maybe 8 to 10 years or so. And I came back in 2014. I was like, oh, I was wondering how Gravekeepers are doing because I used to use Gravekeepers a lot. Spoilers. I like that deck too. And then I decided to look up Gravekeepers and I looked up all the other popular decks that are out there. And then at the time, 2013, 2014, Mermails and Fire Fists were up there on the list. They were first tier, second tier. So I decided to try it out in Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, and I really liked it. I like the water and the fire types there. I always like the elemental stuff when I'm playing games like Pokemon. I like the ice types like Articuno. I like Zapdos, which is like a lightning type. So I always like the fire, water, and lightning kind of types when I'm playing with decks or when I'm playing with games and stuff. Mermail Abyss Megalo, it's very powerful Ulti King. And then Mermail Abyss Giles is really good too for just more XE plays, combo plays. And then on to number 8 would be the one that it's the contemporary to Mermails, which would be Fire Fist. I used to play a Brotherhood Fire Fist a lot. I don't have the deck right now. I may or may not get it back. It's not as nostalgic for me, but I still remember that I really enjoyed playing fire attributes, water attributes, light attributes, or lightning or thunder kind of types of cards. That's why I like playing Fire Fist, and it's kind of like a control. It has some kind of like spammy cards too, like the Fire Fist Spirit. But yeah, I feel like nowadays it's kind of spammy, but it's more of like a lower tier kind of control deck nowadays with a little bit of spam. So I feel like it doesn't have as much OTK potential as Mermails. I mean, nowadays, like I think ever since Burning Abyss and Shaddolls, all the floater cards came around. Just like even the Fire Fist are even not that great tier. Ever since Shaddolls and yeah, after Shaddolls, everything just blew up and just went so fast. It's just ridiculous. Like they're good. I like Shaddolls too, like sometimes, but they're just way too floaty, way too fast for me. I like kind of more of like a control pace. So for Fire Fist Bear, they can bring out other Fire Fist monsters like the Horse Prince with the Spirit as well, and the Fire Fist Rooster. This thing is so like, thank God for this card. It's so useful in Beast Warrior cards in Beast Warrior types. Very good searcher card. It's almost like a reinforce. It's pretty much as a reinforcement in the army for Beast Wars. That's why I like the playing this deck type. I also like the Boojins too. It really works well with Boojins back in the day. It's kind of hard. It's kind of weird to say back in the day because it's like 2013, 2014. Doesn't feel that old to me, but when you think about 2014, that's like 7 years ago. Kind of shows how old I am. And then believe it was number 7, right? Cosmo 10, Fire Fist Mermail 9-8. Then number 7, I put it on the list. It would be anything that's kind of anti-meta. So I wouldn't exactly call this an archetype, but it's kind of like a mashup of all kinds of anti-meta cards in the deck. Examples would be Majesty Fiend, stops effects. Vanity Disease Fiend stops special summons. Jinzo stops traps. You get the idea. Falsadina stops more special summons. And also Macrocosmos removes cards in play. This thing gives a lot of problems for decks that rely heavily on the graveyard, like Chaos Monsters and Lightsworn Shadows, and also Burning Abyss, that kind of stuff, or like any floater cards. So this card's really good. I'm surprised they don't put it as a little bit more, but I guess TCG is different from OCG, since I believe OCG sells Macrocosmos at 3. I feel like the only hero monster I like. I grew up in the original Season 1 era, where it's like Kaiba and Pegasus, so I feel like the only relation I have to heroes in second season is Darklaw. This is the only hero I like. I mean, there's Stratos and all that, but I wasn't really into it. I mean, it's a good kind of like an anti-meta card, Darklaw. And then I heard nowadays for anti-meta, Mystic Mind's pretty popular for negating any monster effects nowadays. So that's one of the newer cards on the list. So just that in general, I like anti-meta. I think this would be number 6. And number 6 would be any Fiend type cards. So my first real consistent deck, I think that was in like 2004, 2005. That was the first real deck I built. It was all Fiends, Dark Necrofear, and I have a couple more cards. It just helps you control the board with Giant Orc, and then Archene Soldier, Dark Ruler Hades. I really like Japanese cards, so I put a picture of the Dark Ruler Hades up here. It's just the artwork is so much better than TCG, I feel like, and then the quality of the cards, how they attack and defense are stacked up vertically instead of horizontally like in TCG. Archfiend Soldier was really popular. I played that a lot. I still have my old school Fiend deck. Might put it up later on. They use Summon Skull a lot for the old Fiend decks. Lajin, they use Lajin a lot as well. Yeah, they even use Jinzo, which is the Black Forest. Search out Jinzo. Jinzo was really popular back in the day. There was a lot of traps going on. Jinzo was pretty much like the god card, the ultimate card that you can use back in the day. So Fiend decks it's pretty fun for me. Number 5, I would put Judgment Dragon, aka Lightsworn, aka just nuke the board and go for game. Judgment Dragon or Lightsworns in general, were kind of the last archetype or kind of deck that I played before I truly quit for several years. I think this card, Judgment Dragon, came out in 2008, 2009, don't quote me on it. I think it was when Dark Arm Teleport Synchros were going crazy, and it was like $1,500, $2,000 deck. I was in college at the time, and I didn't even play that much anymore, but I remember trying this card out, and along with Honest. Honest was really good back then. It was like, the Ghost Rare was freaking insanely expensive. And I just remember playing this card against Gravekeepers, and it was just so powerful back then. It was so good against my deck. So yeah, I just love the artwork. I love how the playstyle. I love milling mechanics. I love just like paying 1,000 life, just everything just dies and blows up. And I love I'm Christian, so I like kind of themes that deal with heaven and hell. So Judgment Dragon's kind of like the ultimate god that judges everything, that takes everything down. And then there's a counterpart like Dark Arm Dragon. They're always warring with each other, that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed Lightsworns. I love the milling mechanic. Again, there's Michael Arca Lightsworn that came out in the structure deck a few years ago. I really like spot removal and control. There's also Raiden. Raiden's really useful for shit-alls, for milling with all the Duelist Alliance floating cards that come out nowadays for Chaos, Zombies. This thing is so useful for any deck that mills into the graveyard. And yeah, the guys that play competitively, they know about this. Charger Light Brigade, super good. I think it used to be limited to 1 when Chaos Dragons were popular in 2012. My friend uses this a lot in 2012. Yeah, when they were going against like 6 Samurais, and I think a year or two before 2010s when Gravekeepers were around. Yeah, this was popular too. And then on to I believe my fourth favorite archetype. Yeah, fourth favorite deck. Fourth favorite archetype would be Blue Eyes White Dragon. And some people may be putting this a lot higher on the list. Some people may be putting it lower on the list. I put it at number 4 because, I mean, I believe when I first started playing the game with the card game, I started watching the anime. I always thought Kaiba was kind of jerk. I still think Kaiba's a jerk, but he does care for his brother, so that's a little plus, a bit of a plus. I always liked Dark Magician more than Blue Eyes White Dragon. Like Blue Eyes White Dragon, I was kind of like off to the side. I kind of didn't want the card. And then as the years passed by, like when I kind of grew up, I had some more income. I just want to buy back kind of the nostalgia that I had in the early 2000s and the 90s when I grew up. No, I was just looking at the Blue Eyes SDK card. I was looking at the Blue Eyes LOB card as well, like this one. The more I looked at the holo card, especially the ultra rare, from the LOB pack from this Blue Eyes White Dragon here, and then the SDK card like this, the more I looked at it, the more I enjoyed the artwork. The more I thought, wow, this is really awesome. And I love themes that talk about the struggles against good versus evil, or like heaven and hell. So like Blue Eyes White Dragon would be like a light type, like majestic white dragon from heaven, kind of like that stuff. They'd be going against like fiends and demons and stuff. So I really like Blue Eyes White Dragon theme type, and I really thank the god, thank Konami, thank the Yu-Gi-Oh gods that they still have support for Blue Eyes White Dragon and Toons and Dark Magician and other old school stuff that keeps older players coming back to play, and even newer players kind of interested in playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, always liked that. True Light, I just picked this up a few days ago. Super useful. Thank God for this card. I feel like whenever I play Blue Eyes, like half the time I get like Blue Eyes White Dragon that's stuck in my head and I can't even play it. So this thing really helps out. And True Light, so useful for summoning Blue Eyes from a graveyard or your hand. So I play old school way. I always like dumping cards into the graveyard before I reborn it. Nowadays, there's so many floaty decks like Links and Pendulums, all that kind of stuff where they can just summon cards straight from the deck. I like the more old school way again, milling into the graveyard, reborning with True Light, reborning with Call of the Haunted, reborning with Monster Reborn, that kind of stuff. So on to the next deck. I love Toons. As you can tell, I like the Season 1 stuff. I like Yugi, Kaiba, Pegasus. So number 3 would be obviously Toons. There's Blue Eyes, Toon Dragon. It just mixes so... It's just such a fun deck to use. It's not the best deck. I'm glad they updated a lot of stuff. So there's Blue Eyes Toon Dragon, pretty much the main monster from Kaiba, and Pegasus just takes it from him and just turns it into a Toon. There's Toon Summon Skull, there's Toon Dark Magician, which is Yugi's card, Toon Red Eyes, which is Jovi's card. They even have Toon Gemini Elf, Toon Cannon Soldier, Toon Goblin Attack Force. It's just so fun to use. It's just funny to just like summon it and just attack your opponent directly, ignoring their monster. I remember when this archetype first came out, Toon's like one of the earliest kind of types theme decks. It was just really hard to use because it was really hard to summon the high level monsters, and it took forever to attack. And if Toon World got destroyed, you can't even search for Toon World, or you could barely search for it back in the day in like 2002, 2003, or 2004. So it was a fun deck to use, but it was very impractical. You couldn't search for anything back then. So yeah, it was fun to use. I love it. I had this one. I believe I had this one in Japanese a long time ago, and I just bought this back a few years ago. I love OCG Toon World. And yeah, they have Toon Kingdom, Toon Page Flips. I'm glad they're updating the deck. So I believe number 2, you probably guessed it. I like Yugi more than Kaiba because he's friendlier, and then I love Dark Magician more than Blue Eyes. Although they're both good, Blue Eyes and Dark Magician, they're really close. They're both the more iconic monsters in the game, in the show, in the card game. But number 2 would be theme, or number 2 archetype deck would be Dark Magician for me. Growing up, my friend used to give me my first deck of cards was, I don't even remember what my first deck of cards was. He just gave me like a pile of cards. First card on top was Petite Moth, and I believe the first start deck I bought, after watching the show, after getting the deck, like pile of cards from him, was I believe Yugi Star deck. I believe I got at least one, and then I bought 3 Pegasus Star decks just to get MST from each one. I didn't know you can buy them individually. I live in LA, so there's this big warehouse kind of swap meet kind of Comic Con thing called Frankensons. If you live in LA, check out Frankensons. Just look it up. It's in City of the Industry next to the mall. It's a great place to go with family and friends, but they sell single cards. Back in 2002, in the early 2000s, I didn't know you could buy single cards like MST individually, so I ended up buying 3 starter decks, the Pegasus Star decks, just to get MST. I was a kid. I was dumb. I didn't know anything. Okay, but yeah, it's like Dark Magician, Dark Magician deck, Toon deck. Those two are 2 of my favorite archetypes. It's just so fun to use. I mean, like back then it wasn't even that good. Like you could so hard to summon Dark Magician, even harder to summon Dark Paladin. Very hard to summon Blue Eyes Ultimate unless you have Cyberstein, which wasn't even out in the U.S. They were playing it in the OCG. But yeah, that was tough. And I'm glad again they're giving out new support again for Magician's Souls, help summon Dark Magicians better. Dark Paladin. They have more OCG support for Dark Magicians and Blue Eyes as well. I believe that Tyrant of D is a new version of Lord of D. It's going to come out for the Blue Eyes cards theme, so it can pretty much special summon. It can dump Blue Eyes from the deck to the graveyard, and then you just reborn it with Tyrant of D. So one card does like 3 different effects. It's insane. So I'm glad they're doing more support. It's great. I love the artwork for Dark Paladin. I have one of them, and Eternal Soul is really good. Again, thank God, thank the Yu-Gi gods for putting up Eternal Soul, because before these trap cards, before True Light, before Eternal Soul, like Blue Eyes and Dark Magician are just so hard to summon. Like you have no reliable card to summon it, unless you have Sage with Eyes of Blue for Blue Eyes White Dragon. But even that, you're using like little weenie like level 1 monsters, which is kind of lame. So I'm really glad they put in the Eternal Soul and True Light. And then for number 1, my favorite archetype, my favorite deck of all time. I probably mentioned it a few years ago in one of my other videos, but for sure it would be, Gravekeepers. Story behind why Gravekeepers is my favorite deck and my favorite archetype. This is, by the way, this is the only deck I have that's stored in a boulder, like a boulder box, like a boulder brand box, like the high-end box. Everything else, all of my other decks, I just put them in deck boxes, because it's just like other decks that I don't like as much as Gravekeepers, though I like Dark Magician. But Gravekeepers is my favorite because when I started playing somewhat more competitively against my friend, casual competitive, back then, all he would use would be Black Luster Soldier and CED, Chaos Emperor Dragon. He would just sack me every single time. He would just remove a light and dark, just destroy me, like with Yada and CED. So I hated that so much that I just dedicated myself to building a Gravekeeper's deck just to beat him. So I eventually built it after he kind of quit. Like I built Gravekeepers after, but I really liked trolling my opponent when I played Gravekeepers in like 06, 07, 2005. Like just Solid Judgment over again. Solid Judgment, Magic Drain, Compulsory Evacuation Device, and then plopping down Necrophile so my friend can't do anything. I think he was running Vampires at the time with Vampire Lord. Like he literally couldn't do anything, because I'll just like spam him down with Gravekeeper's Spear Soldier, Gravekeeper's Silent, and then Gravekeeper's Commanded. It was just really good back then. And in 2010, when I quit, I sold all my cards, including my Gravekeepers cards. I didn't know Gravekeepers were tier 1 along with 6 Samurai back in 2010, 2011, and kind of regret selling my cards, but I'm glad I bought it again. So my cards are kind of behind me. You can see a couple of my cards there, boxes there as well. So really love Gravekeepers. I mean, they have some support. They're not as good as back in 2010, obviously, when the Recruiter came out. The Recruiter was like Witch of the Black Forest for Gravekeepers. It searched everything. Like, it was even better than Spy. Spy's a good combo card. I mean, they have, obviously, there's Necro Valley to stop your opponents from moving anything in the graveyard. This card is still good, like, to an extent. I think it depends on the meta nowadays. Like, if there's a lot of meta cards that are moving cards in and out of the graveyard, it can stop a lot. But if there's a lot of cards that are moving extra decks in and out, it won't be as useful. But it's still a pretty good card in general. I still think Mystic Mine is a little bit better than Necro Valley nowadays, because Mystic Mine stops pretty much all effects. Yeah, and then yeah, just some extra support Gravekeeper Supernaturalist. I like this. It just adds an extra higher attack monster. It can get over bigger monsters, and I like Dark Honest too. I was thinking about getting Dark Honest for Gravekeepers, is since it just boosted their attack by so much. Gravekeepers kind of have a harder time going against like big boss monsters. So yeah, that's the end of my list. I know it's kind of a long rant, but if you liked it, give it a like. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I haven't done these kinds of top 10, top 5 videos in a very long time. And I just decided to do this again just on a whim, just because, it's just raining today. It's just like nice to just chill at home and just start up, just to add some more fun videos to the channel and just enjoy myself in general. So I just thank God for this. It's just fun. Yeah, so thank you for enjoying the video, for watching the video, and see you around.